Right, hello, welcome. I have not done one of these in a while. The last one of these revision streams that I did very well view-wise, and I just want to preface the rest of these revision streams by, number one, saying I'm not a teacher, okay? I am a year 13 student who is clueless about a lot of things, so please, if you are going to watch these as a genuine way to revise, I really appreciate it. I love all of you guys, but I do not know everything. There will be things that I will say which I will get wrong. It is guaranteed. So if you are going to use these to revise, look at it from a critical perspective. See what I talk about and see if you can find any mistakes. If I talk about something perfectly, obviously use that to revise. But there's a lot of topics where it's easy to make mistakes. We are covering a big one today, ecology. Literally the entire ecology subject, because we have a test on it tomorrow. And I could cry because I hate the ecology topic. But to be frankly honest, there's not too much that I really have a problem with. It's all just about yapping about specific things. So let me go pull out my laptop. I made some notes on topics here. So these are the topics that are going to be on the test tomorrow. We have adaptation for niches, definitions for ecosystem, community, etc. Those are things I need to work on. Reduction of biodiversity in communities, we can talk about that. Quadrats and transects to collect data. I don't think we need to cover that. I think that's very easy. Random sampling, very easy. And climax, community, and succession, maybe we cover briefly. And then I've just put some topics which I myself am very confident on. Capture, recapture, positive and negative correlations, and null hypothesis. So, I guess we can start off by looking at the definitions. Because if you don't know the definitions, then there is 0 point in knowing the rest of the subject. And I'll be honest, I struggle the most with these definitions. They are difficult. They are very difficult, okay? Difficult in the sense that they're just annoying to drill into your head. So, let me find where I've put it. Oh my, I really need to tidy up my Google Docs, apparently. Okay. Definition for population and population, community, and species. Okay. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. I'm gonna butcher these, but I'm gonna try and get it off the top of my head first, and then we'll see. Population, is that just not all the members of a species in a habitat? Because when you look at like the population of humans, you think, oh, population of this country, that country. So I'm going to say that it's all members of a species living in a habitat. Community, okay. Isn't that the abiotic and biotic factors in an ecosystem? Possibly. And species, I don't know how you would describe a species. Is it one of the factors that makes a species that it needs to be able to have fertile offspring? Or is that some other definition that I'm misrecalling? Okay, let's have a look. Population is all the organisms of the same species living together in a habitat. So yeah, all members of the same species living in a habitat. I got that right. Community is all the populations of different species living together. Okay, so that is very easy to know the difference between. The definition for population is literally the reverse of a population of a community. Definition of population is all members... Oh, these pens. I keep buying new ones and I have to keep buying new ones. Okay. Population is all members of a species living in a habitat. Community is all members of different species. All the populations. All populations of all species. Meanwhile, population is the population of a single species living in a habitat. And species is a group of similar organisms that can breed with each other. Okay, so I have just thought of a very nice way to remember this. Population, community, species. And it's same, different, same. That is a very easy way to remember. PCs, SDS. Population is the same species living in a habitat. Community is all the different species populations in a habitat. And species are similar organisms. That's an easy way to remember that. PCS, SDS, or PCs, and I don't know, solid state drives. I don't know, I don't do computing. Okay, ecosystem. That is an ecosystem. Ecosystem is abiotic and biotic. Okay. I guess we could probably make a little map of these. So population. Population is all organisms of some species. And then we can tie population to community. We can tie that to community and say it's a population of different species. So you can kind of tie those together. And then species is just a group of similar organisms that can breed for fertile offspring. Okay. Again, the reason I spend so long on that is because I do genuinely struggle with remembering that. Ecosystem is just the abiotic and biotic interacting. If you think about it, the ecosystem of, I don't know, the rainforest, you might think, you know, I don't know, what are in the rainforest? Parrots and spiders? I don't know, I've never been to one. But when you think of somewhere like a jungle, you don't think of just the animals, you think of the trees, the foliage, things like that. Because they are they are biotic factors too, but also the abiotic stuff, you know, the non-living things, like, you know, the weather, for example. Rainforests, a lot of humidity, things like that. Succession and pioneer. Okay, this is a very nice topic. I like looking at this. The idea is we have an uninhabitable area as such. And the idea is that by basically just random chance, we will have things like, I don't know, seeds or something, which will cause the development, the growth of a pioneer species. Pioneer species, they're called that because they are the pioneers, they are the founders of this new community. The pioneer species are things like lichen or like moss, things that can withstand hostile conditions very easily. They're well adapted for a variety of conditions. So we have our lichen growing. Obviously, lichen is not invincible. It will die, and when it does, it's going to decompose and create a layer of topsoil. And from there, the rest is basically just over time, we're going to get things like, oh, now that there's a small layer of topsoil, grass can grow. And when that grass dies, we're going to get an even thicker layer of topsoil from which we can get, shrubs and stuff. And eventually, we are going to have it where, oh wow, I cannot draw a tree. We're eventually going to have it where trees and things like that can grow. So the idea of a pioneer species is they start the domino effect, okay? If we imagine each one of these as a increasingly big domino, the pioneer is what knocks over the first domino. It provides the living conditions for the rest of them. And the idea then is once we reach a point in the ecosystem where, there's grass, all trees, that's it. It's a climax community. We're not going to get any more different species. It's perfectly stable. It's a stable community of organisms. The contrary to this is secondary succession, which is basically the same, except you start with, if we get our dominoes back out, you start with your climax community, but then a disaster, something happens, which leads very quickly to nothing again. But then it grows just as fast, if not faster, back up. That's the idea for a climax community. Interspecies competition, inter is different, okay? Different species competing. Intra is members of the same species. There are some similar words to this, inter and intra, but I don't recall what for. It's a different prefix for something. That might help, possibly. I don't know. We also have things like directional selection, things like that. Directional selection is where we have a community of alleles like this. Okay. Where obviously, I don't recall what you call this. It's some statistical thing. But anyways, is it it's standard deviation, isn't it? Have I forgot that? Standard deviation. And directional selection favors an extreme phenotype. So the entire thing is going to shift. That's directional selection. Disruptive selection is going to favor, it's going to kind of disrupt this nice little bell curve that we have. Let me redraw it. Disruptive selection will disrupt the curve, and we will kind of end up getting it where it's, I think, like this. So it favors extreme phenotypes that aren't the mean, really. Or actually, it might be even more extreme than this. It might literally be like that. I don't recall how extreme they want it to look, but it might be that. And then stabilizing is where it's literally going to stabilize. The graph is going to get way smaller because it is literally favoring the ones closest to the mean. But if you do core math or GCSE statistics, you know about I've literally forgotten the word. Oh my god. What's this called? Distribution. Standard deviation. You already know about standard deviation. And I am 90% sure that that's all the definitions. Already covered climax communities. So what else should we do? Adaptation of niches. Now, I have just learnt this today. Niches, from what I can understand, they basically almost prevent competition. And the way they do that is because each species in a community or an ecosystem is adapted to be different. And what I mean by that is, like, if we have... I'm going to attempt to draw, like, a very primitive looking tree here, right? I did not do GCSE art, guys. Please don't kill me. Right, imagine that's a tree. Imagine that I'm a good drawer for a second. Jesus Christ, that looks so bad. Okay, imagine this is a habitat, okay? And we have species A, B, and C, okay? The reason that there is no competition between these species is, and the fact they're able to coexist in this same habitat, is because of niches. So, for example, species A might feed at night, and it might feed on insects or, bugs on the floor. Species B might feed during the day on leaves. Species C might feed on... I don't know. I'm fucking airborne animals or something. Or insects, like flying ones. The idea is they all eat different things, okay? Maybe they have different breeding patterns. So these ones might breed during the winter, these ones in the summer and spring. The idea is that they all occupy different niches in order so that they can coexist without competition. And that's the danger of having an overlapping niche. If you have two species that occupy the trunk of a tree, then obviously whichever one is better adapted is going to win and will likely end up killing it off, just like the red and grey squirrels. The red squirrels were native, grey squirrels aren't. They are better adapted and they occupy the same niche but better. So as a result, the red squirrels are dying off. That is niches. And I believe that is almost everything. Reduction of biodiversity, it can be a good thing to reduce biodiversity. I don't recall the name, but there's a process where you cut down trees at the, stump. And what that basically does is it can increase biodiversity over time, because you're allowing the trees to grow back stronger because they have well-established root systems, and the light, which previously couldn't go to the surface because of a tree, can go down and it can encourage other species to grow. Random sampling and quadrats. We can quickly look at this. Honestly, the hardest question you could probably get asked is to do math with a quadrat. Most of this topic doesn't involve math. In fact, I don't recall a single bit of math we've had to do for this topic. So we should be fine, I think. But quadrats, I don't know why the brightness, by the way, changes so much. That's really weird. And now it's not, okay, whatever. But quadrats, they are used for they are used for random sampling. Okay. Used for random sampling. The idea with quadrats is that it should be used for things that aren't, living, or things that move insanely slow. Let's say this is a field, we establish some grid coordinates here. I'm not going to draw a grid because, God help me, I can't draw. But let's say that goes from 1 to 15, that goes from 1 to 10. You would use a random number generator to... randomly get coordinates, so, there you go. The idea you need to know with random sampling is that every sample has an equal chance of getting picked. That's something that we learned in core math. That's something you should know in GCSE statistics. Everything has an equal chance of being picked. If you did something like, I think it's stratified sampling, that is every frequency. That is interval sampling, which, while it would still be effective, is not the best. Okay, because obviously then, what if there's a change here which causes something different? Or what if this entire area here is different? It's not factoring in different abiotic conditions. So, that is that. Just gonna quickly... Oh, it's reconnected. Okay. Sorry, I got a message from Baraka. My bad. The stream is surprisingly stable. That's cool. Okay. Okay. So, I feel like that's everything I need to cover. I don't think there's anything more that I need to cover here, which realistically could pop up in an exam and be scary. Obviously, in terms of AQA questions, hardest ones in my opinion are the ones where you're given data and have to, analyze it, because they use a lot of keywords in specific ways, When they want you to discuss something, they'll tell you to discuss it, but it can be hard to figure out what that means, Analyze the data, interpret the data, evaluate the data. That's a horrible one. I actually last year made a bingo chart to try and see what questions would be on the exam, and I got most right, because that is literally a thing that happens. They are very pretentious when it comes to how they describe things. It is very difficult, okay? But I think we're going to get there in the end. We can go on Physics Math Tutor and see what questions they have for ecology. Physics Math Tutor is great. I use literally only three websites for my revision. Website 1, Physics Math Tutor, because they have plenty of exam questions and it helps categorize things into topics. I use this website called Primrose Kitten, which is only useful for a handful of niche topics, but it gives you quizzes for them. And the quizzes aren't the best, but it helps to remember things quick. Obviously, the AQA website, you need to use that. You need to milk that a lot, because that comes with examiner reports, that comes with everything you need to know about the exams, and it's essential that you do it. Let's have a look at genetics, populations, evolution. Okay. So yeah, it's asking you to read a passage, and then it tells you how and why there is an increase in species in this lake. So I guess you could talk about, they occupy different niches, so there's less competition. I don't know. Some math questions. Lots of nutrients has resulted in a decrease. Loss of nutrients. Because obviously, the fish that aren't specifically adapted to last without those nutrients are going to die. There's a 4-mark question for explaining capture recapture. That is a godsend in an exam. Bearing in mind that the papers are out of 3 papers, is each one out of 75? So that's 4 out of 225. That is worth almost 2% of your A-level grade. Explaining capture recapture, that I would argue is one of the easiest things in the world. That is mental. 2% of a grade just handed to you on a platter right there. That is incredible. That is why you need to make sure you not only do as hard as you can in the math questions, because remember, Math questions, even if you don't know what the math is, try it, okay? You have an hour and a half, I think, in the exam. 1 hour and a half, plenty of time to where if you're finished, you maybe have 20 minutes to kill. You could spend 10 minutes of that trying a couple different combinations in a calculator, seeing what looks right. There were plenty of times where last year in the AS paper, I had the same thing happen. Where I was literally sat, like, you know, after finishing the paper, thinking, holy shit, those math questions were terrible. And I just redid a couple of them different ways, you know, put this number on the top to divide instead of that number. And I got some of them right because of that. Because I looked and thought, hold on, that number looks better than that number, let's put it in. I also think if you reattempt math questions, it can help something click sometimes. There'll be some math questions where I won't understand what it's asking. I'll attempt it, fail, but then I'll go back later, reattempt it, and think, oh, hold on, I see what it's asking me now. Let's do this. So that is something you need to think about too. I know this exam isn't graded, nothing like that, but moreover, I think it's good that I put in this amount of revision for it, because for those who don't know, I have been doing these revision streams now since GCSE season. Basically since what, April, I want to say, of 2023. So I have been doing these now for about a year and a half, just over. And I find that these revision streams are helpful for me because I'm able to explain stuff, and it's good. It's good. I'm probably wrapping things up there though, because again, this is more of a yap topic anyways. I will be back next week to talk about things like the reflex arc. We'll talk about, you know, genetics, but we also need to begin to revise paper 1 because that is coming up slowly, and we need time to be able to revise for all of those nasty topics. So I'll see you guys then. Goodbye.